invite you to type down any questions in the chat box at the bottom of your screen, and we will endeavor to answer these questions at the allocated time at the end of the event. If you have any questions after the webinar, feel free to contact Billings Life through our website, billings.life, our email address, or social media pages. Well, we can now begin to hear the male perspective on the couple fertility. We would like to acknowledge the contributions a number of men have made in the success of the Billings Ovulation Method throughout the 70 years. With Professor James Brown and Professor Eric Oderblad, who provided scientific validation of the method. More recently, Damien Sawyer and Damien Berger from Dad Digital have developed our online charting tool, Fertility Pinpoint, which now enables couples to easily chart and share their fertility status at any given time. We also acknowledge Adrian Perez, who, along with his wife, have developed Billings app, another online charting service that is free to download on your mobile phone app store. If you joined us last year for NFA week, you would have heard Adrian speak. And then, of course, we acknowledge every husband and partner who has played an important part in the natural fertility awareness journey of each couple. We will also have the privilege to hear from a number of couples who are using the Billings Ovulation Method and how the method has benefited their relationship and family life. But none of this would have been possible without Dr. John Billings accepting the invitation from Father Katerinik in 1953 to help investigate how to assist couples wishing to plan their families according to their needs. To kick off this webinar, we're going to hear from Paul Nines, who's a co-founder and managing director of Real Talk, a leading provider of relationships and sexuality education for primary and high school age students. Paul will provide some insight to the importance of the knowledge and understanding a couple has of their fertility and the benefits of these to their marriage, relationship, and family. Let's hear from Paul.
Hello, I'm excited to welcome you tonight to this webinar. My name is Paul Ninnis and I'm the Managing Director of Real Talk International. Real Talk is an organisation that works all around Australia and New Zealand. Every year we present over 500 speaking sessions on topics to do with the human person, life, love, relationships, sex and marriage. And I'm excited tonight to be opening this particular webinar on what is an occasion to celebrate the 70th anniversary of the Billings Method. I've been impacted by the Billings Method, and many people have been. Travelling around Australia and studying in Melbourne, I encountered many people who have been impacted by the Billings Method and more broadly by natural family planning and fertility services all around the nation. To name a few things that have happened as a result of, I suppose, this movement, you could call it, and in many ways a worldwide change because of some things that happened or were birthed here in Australia. There are lives that exist because of this. There are people's health that is improved. There are relationships and marriages that are strengthened. And tonight's theme, there are men who have been brought into something that otherwise they wouldn't have understood. There have been relationships strengthened and many men who have been impacted by the blessing that is the Billings Method. So I'm excited to kick off this webinar. I think as I thought about tonight's theme, in some ways I was challenged, as some people have been, on the masculine or men's role in this particular picture of fertility services and natural family planning. And I think for a lot of guys, it's an area that they've sort of dismissed or not wanted to engage with. And so I think my biggest first thought or takeaway is that this is a really grounding thing for men. In many ways, as I thought about it, this is kind of the antidote to a lot of the problems that men and masculinity has with the whole topic of relationships and sex. In the sense that I think often modern culture, movies, social media tries to separate the idea of sex from relationships, or the idea of sex from procreation at times. It can seem for a lot of men like it's something that you should enjoy, be interested in, but not too overly concerned about and not really understand. It's something that's over there and you dip your toe in and take it as you please. And so in some ways, for a man to actually understand where babies come from, to understand the process and the struggles and the many intricacies that go on with a person's fertility and their role in that, for a man to understand that, it's really grounding. Like it brings you back down to earth. It actually helps you be aware, appreciative, and considerate. And for that reason, I think it's a great thing for relationships as well. It's not just for men, it's not just for women, it's for relationships. And in my life in particular, something that has been challenging, but a big part of my marriage, and something that has really blessed our marriage, both in aiming to conceive and also in avoiding conception. So I'm excited to introduce this topic. I also asked a couple other people what would they say or what are their takeaways. And two really important and interesting responses stood out for me. The first one was, natural fertility planning, natural fertility services or natural family planning, the Billings Method, helps people become aware of just the awesomeness and the wonder of creating a new life. Like it truly is a miraculous, amazing thing. And I think there's something that happens when you start to understand that brings about an awe and wonder. And I see that in the children we speak to, but also in the married couples and the couples who have never really understood this. And there's a lot of naivety. I can't believe how little many grown adults know about, the ins and outs of how a life is created. So that's the first one. It brings about an awe and a wonder. And the second one that stood out to me was the comment that knowledge is power. Knowledge is power. And you know what? For a lot of men, they like to get under the hood. They like to understand how things operate. And so for men, I think we're deeply impacted when we start to understand everything that goes about, everything that happens in the female's body, in the female cycle, and everything that happens to allow a child to be created, to be birthed into this world. It truly is a miraculous and amazing journey. And as we get to understand that, it empowers us. It allows us to understand, communicate, show empathy, and also just really be involved more in what is something that we should all be involved in. So, look, they're my words of encouragement and introduction. I just want to thank everyone involved in this particular webinar, but also in natural family planning, natural fertility services, and the Billings Method all around the world. It is important work. Like, if it just changes one life, if it just brings about one life, if it just helps one person's health, then it is a really important thing. And it definitely helps men, and it definitely helps relationships. So I praise God and thank you very much for all those watching this and all those involved in natural fertility services. Enjoy the webinar.
Wow, what a great introduction from Paul. Well, I will now introduce Carla Chegwidden. Carla has a master's in education, and she is an accredited Billings Ovulation Method teacher and fertility pinpoint tutor. She'll now discuss the importance of male fertility and common questions which has been put forward to our senior teachers. We warmly welcome Carla to the webinar.
Thank you, Caroline. So we are lucky enough in our organisation to have some wonderful senior teachers, those experienced teachers, some of whom have been around since the time of John and Lynn Billings, who have seen all the variants of the ovulatory cycle and are really great at interpreting charts. Us younger, less experienced teachers often have questions for our senior teachers, and these questions and the responses are published and sent out to the Billings teacher community. So I'm going to share responses to two of these questions to senior teachers tonight. The first question is, Tell me more about male fertility. Is it as complicated as the development of the ovum and ovulation? So obviously, when we talk about fertility in the context of the Billings chart, we mean couple fertility. Females and males have different physiology, and to actually conceive, we need to combine the two. So on balance, at first glance, it looks like male fertility is much simpler than female fertility. Females begin being fertile from puberty, have cycles with fertile and infertile days, and stop being fertile at menopause, when we no longer ovulate. Male fertility is not cyclic. They begin producing sperm at puberty, but continue to produce it throughout the rest of their life. So before we go further, we'll just have a quick look at some diagrams. Here's the diagram of the female reproductive system. So when we're talking about the ovaries and the fallopian tubes and the uterus and the cervix and the vagina and the vulva, then this is what we're talking about. The male reproductive system obviously looks quite different. You can see here the pubic bone, the vas deferens, the penis, the testes, the epididymis. These are sitting inside the scrotum, and there's the penis there, with the seminal vesicle up here with next to the prostate gland. So when we get into it, male fertility is actually quite complex. Fertilization of an egg is the result of a sperm cell successfully meeting an egg cell in the fallopian tube. Before this can happen, the ejaculated sperm must undergo what is called capacitation, a set of natural physical changes. Capacitation is a necessary process in preparing the sperm so it is capable of fusing with the ovum. The acrosome is a cap-like structure over part of the sperm's head. As the sperm meet with the egg's hard shell, so the content of the acrosome is exposed. This is known as the acrosome reaction and is the final process so the sperm can break through the egg's tough coating. Just like ovulation, the changes sperm undergo must occur not only in an ordered sequence, but at the right time and in the right place. From the beginning of sperm production to maturity takes about 3 months. Sperm production begins in the testes. Cells in the testes make identical copies of themselves, then divide, having only one set of chromosomes. At this stage, they are immature and cannot move on their own. From the testes, they are transported to the epididymis. During transit through the epididymis, which takes about 2 weeks, the sperm mature. Their development is now complete. They are motile and they have the ability to fertilize. These mature sperm are stored ready for ejaculation. However, if ejaculation does not occur within a certain time frame, the stored sperm cells are broken down and reabsorbed into the body. The sperm has 3 main parts. The head, containing the nucleus and enzymes. The nucleus holds the genetic substance, chromosomes and DNA. These will determine things like color of the skin, eyes, and hair. The acrosome is a cap-like structure that contains enzymes needed to help the sperm break through the thick coat surrounding the ovum, which is called the zona pellucida. The midpiece contains cells that produce the energy sperm use to move. And the tail, also called the flagellum, is like a propeller that helps move the sperm forward. At the time of intercourse, tens to hundreds of millions sperm are deposited into the vagina. From here, they migrate through the cervix, the uterus, and the fallopian tubes towards the ovary. Fertilization occurs in the outer third of a fallopian tube. Throughout this somewhat arduous journey, the sperm will interact with a number of structures and secretions of the female genital tract, which are heavily influenced by the sex hormones estrogen, progesterone, and testosterone. Despite the exorbitant number of motile sperm, very few will make it to the final destination. Following intercourse, all unsuccessful sperm cells are absorbed and form part of the woman's immune system. The work of Professor Oderblad has helped us understand the importance of cervical mucus in sperm transportation and survival. Whether sperm travel quickly to the waiting ovum or are stored in the S crypts, it is essential that they are exposed to cervical mucus. Cervical mucus performs a series of biological functions. It helps eliminate the abnormal and select the normal mobile and motile sperm. It provides adequate nutrients for the sperm, which are stored in the S crypts. It helps preserve the sperm fertilizing ability, and it helps to preserve energy by modulating or suppressing the tail movements. After leaving the cervix, the sperm enter the uterus, but there is still a considerable distance for the sperm to travel before meeting with the ovum. In the next part of their journey, the sperm are exposed to endometrial cells and their secretions. capacitation of the sperm continues. The endometrial cells help to control the rate of progress so the sperm do not complete the process too early. Only a few thousand sperm will enter the fallopian tube. The epithelial cells in the fallopian tube boost the fertile lifespan of the sperm, and they can remain in the fallopian tube for hours or days. This interaction with the cells and secretions within the fallopian tube aids in the further selection of the best sperm. So there we have a little snippet of the complexity of the male reproductive system. Our second question tonight is, why do we use early day rule 2, even when we want to get pregnant? So to answer this question, we need to first answer the question, what is early day rule 2? We have 4 simple rules in the Billings Ovulation Method. 3 of them apply to the pre-ovulatory phases, what we call the early days, and 1 post-ovulation, the peak rule. The beauty of these rules is that they don't change. It doesn't matter what stage of life you're at or what's going on with your cycle. The rules are designed to cover any situation. So the second early day rule is, on days of basic infertile pattern, intercourse is available on alternate evenings. The basic infertile pattern is the infertile phase after menstruation, before ovulation. So we've got 2 parts to this rule. By waiting until evening, you'll know that there has been no change from your BIP, because if any mucus had been present, you would have sensed it or seen it come away as you moved around during the day. And the reason for alternate evenings is because on the day after intercourse, there will be seminal fluid loss, which may mask the beginning of the fertile sensations. There are no live sperm cells in this seminal fluid. So I've used a few terms here talking about the phases of the cycle. Let's have a quick look at what they actually are. This here is a depiction of what we call a slide rule, and it represents a cycle. So the first phase is menstruation, followed by the infertile BIP, or basic infertile pattern. We're then going to our fertile phase, and followed by another infertile phase. So the length of the cycle is determined by the basic infertile pattern, that first infertile phase. In an average length cycle, the pattern of dryness or discharge might continue for a few days. When ovulation is delayed, that pattern might continue for weeks. And in short cycles, there may be little or no days of basic infertile pattern. And while the focus of tonight's webinar is the male perspective, we really can't go without mentioning Dr. Lynn Billings here. It was her research that helped define the basic infertile pattern. Her husband, John, had begun the research and developed the basis of the method and was writing his first book. And it wasn't until then, in 1963, when Lynn was proofreading this book, that she became involved and discovered that a woman's touch was needed to help these hard cases. Women who were breastfeeding or approaching menopause, or who had long or irregular cycles, suddenly were able to use the method accurately. So if we look at where we use our 4 rules in relation to the cycle, that's where we use our early day rule 1 during menstruation, early day rule 2 for our BIP, early day rule 3 in our fertile phase, and the peak rule for after ovulation. So it's pretty clear why early day rule 2 is important for those wishing to avoid pregnancy, but why is it important for those trying to conceive? So remember the details about the maturation process of sperm. Mature sperm are stored ready for ejaculation. However, if ejaculation does not occur within a certain time frame, the stored sperm cells are broken down and reabsorbed into the body. So for the couple wishing to conceive, it's important to have had enough intercourse so that the mature sperm are being ejaculated and renewed, but not so much that the sperm count is depleted. By using alternate evenings in the BIP, that balance should be achieved by the time fertile symptoms and hopefully a peak are recognised. So on this chart, if this couple were following early day rule 2, day 7, day 9, and day 11 would all be available for intercourse, regardless of whether they were trying to conceive or not. So this brings us to the end of this section. Time for me to hand back over to Caroline. Thanks, Caroline.
No worries. Thank you so much, Carla. There's a lot of new things I learned about the male fertility and how the sperm has a long journey through the woman's reproductive organ to fertilization. So if anyone's got any question, feel free to type it down in the chat, and or if we can't answer it, you can contact us afterwards. Moving on, before we hear from our lovely couples, we can start this section with a quote from Dr. John Billings, who has written many papers and left us with some wonderful insight, including a quote from his book, Gift of Life and Love, which highlights the benefits couple enjoy when using the method together. So, let's wait. There has developed a deeper insight into the beneficial effects of the use of a natural method upon the conjugal relationship. A better level of communication is achieved, deeper insight into each other's physical and emotional needs. The couple learns to look at their combined fertility and decide together what they will do. There is a sharing responsibility in the achievement of the intended result. Most of all, there is a demonstration of a willingness to accept the gentle discipline required so that self-respect and love grows as both husband and wife observe in themselves and each other the goodness of which they are capable. That's a quote from Dr. John Billings' book. Let us hear a very short clip of an interview done 40 years ago where Dr. John Billings talks about the shared responsibility and benefits of learning the method.
The women really get to know their cycles. They know them better than the doctor can ever hope to know. And they've really now reached a new level of liberation because they're in control of their fertility. They've got a better sense of their own dignity, the wonder of their reproductive processes, and the husbands share in the happiness, really, that knowledge brings to the marriage.
Great video. So Dr. John Billings and his wife, Dr. Evelyn Billings, dedicated the remainder of their lives to promoting the Billings Ovulation Method around the world. It is so wonderful to gain some insight from him. What was true 40 years ago is still true for couples using the method even today. Next part of the webinar, I'd like to introduce you to our first couple, Anna and Seth, who are newlywed and using the method in their relationship. This interview was recorded a few weeks ago.
We've known each other for probably about 8 years at this stage, and we got married. We've been dating about 3 years, and then we got married 4 months ago. But I learned through her, and so she has all the information on that.
Yeah, so my sister, she started the Billings Method several years ago, and she had gone through her own journey to find that, but I was very interested because I'm also into kind of more natural methods, and so it really appealed to me, and that's when we jumped on board.
Yeah, and then I attended the home seminar, and then the videos, and then they have all the booklets and all that. That helped me. I learned a bit through her, but that was definitely really informative. Having the house visit,
Yeah, Mandy did a great job with that. She came out and taught some of our friends as well, so it was good to all learn together. Yeah. Yeah. So I've never been on contraception personally, and when I was looking at different options, I guess through conversation with other women, there were some things that deterred me a little bit from other methods and about how it affected their bodies and how it affected them. So I guess for myself, it was really appealing that there was no kind of strings attached, if you want to put it that way, or that there weren't any changes that was going to happen to me as a result if I was to go down the other paths. So yeah, I guess for me personally, I was really happy to say yes, because I guess I felt like it was the best thing for my health, and we were happy to learn the process of that together.
Mm.
So again, my sister told me about it several years ago, and she said, "Oh, you should probably just start tracking it so you're used to it, you know, when you get married and things like that." And I was a bit slack, so I didn't. Like, I was aware of it, but I didn't probably start really implementing it until January this year. Yeah. Yeah.
It pretty much was, and it just made a lot of sense to me when I first was exposed to it. That there's, you know, all things have, you know, cycles, I suppose, or seasons, and that there was a natural way. You don't have to use. I guess, you know, the most common is the pill, I suppose, but I'm not too sure how people are ignorant to it. Like, even I was aware of how damaging it is damaging and toxic, and so it was just like, oh, awesome! This is the way, yeah.
Go for it, yeah. And it was good that Beth has always been receptive to, like, it's been very easy to get him on board with what might be a bit challenging for others in their own personal kind of journeys. So yeah, there was no hesitation in learning it with me, which was really good, because otherwise it could be a bit, you know, at first I did find it quite confusing. It's a bit to learn and absorb, and even now I'm still learning, and, you know, I guess really like fine-tuning, you know, tracking in the process of things. So yeah, it was good that he was willing to learn it with me. Yeah. So
Yeah, of course. You know, you're in a relationship with someone, and you get married, and you want to know everything about them, and you want that connection. And it helped me connect with her better, knowing that where she was at this in the cycle, and of course it affects not just fertility, but um, you know, general mood and all that. And it's just it's definitely had a net positive impact. I'd say that, yeah. Mm.
I think it's just, for me, I realized that I go about my everyday life and didn't pay a ton of attention, I guess, to my body. So learning about it all, I think what was a bit tricky is I had to really kind of be in tune about what was happening, which is the whole process of Billings. It's, you know, how you feel and everything like that. So I think for me it was like really being in tune about exactly what was going on, how I was feeling, and being consistent in tracking that as well. So I think, yeah, that was a bit tricky, but there was a big motivation there to, like, I guess, yeah, learn it and be persistent, and over time it's gotten easier, and you recognise what, I guess, is what's happening, and gain more confidence.
I think it can be a bit maybe technical in some places, especially some ambiguous because everyone's different. And then so it's not just a 5-minute conversation and you understand it. It's definitely, you do have to commit some, I guess, some energy into trying to grasp the concept. But you know, it's just you get out what you put in, and so if you put the effort in and you're keen, then it's going to come easier. You know, and it is simple. Like, there might be a little bit to it, but really it is quite a simple concept. Yeah.
So it has been a void, and at this very point in the time, it probably still is a void, but it's definitely opening up to achieve, if that makes sense.
Yes,
So
yes.
I don't think it will be very far off until that kind of switches. And again, that's probably another learning curve.
Yes.
It's probably, or it's, I guess you're switching over and
Yeah.
you're doing the opposite kind of thing. So that will be interesting to learn about again. Well, not again, I guess, kind of for the first time in that context. Yeah. I think I think women, maybe, I'm not sure, maybe men as well, can be quite scared about moving into these methods without, I mean, obviously there is protection, but without, I guess, like a definite ruling of whether you're going to achieve pregnancy or avoid, if that makes sense. But I guess what I'd say is, I think it's very beneficial before you either get into relationships or, you know, avoiding or planning for pregnancy. It's really, it'd be very helpful for me if I jumped onto it years later, so I just know what's happening, and then I feel like it's a little bit easier to, yeah, I guess when you're in a relationship and going through all those journeys, it's easier to kind of identify and recognize what's going on. Yeah. But also, like, I just think it's great, you know, like I don't have any side effects of pills or of you know, the rod or anything, no side effects. Like, my body's as natural as it can be, and I feel great, and that's really valuable to me. So I definitely think it's worth it.
Yeah, it's just yeah, I'd say for most guys, it's pretty easy to leave the women's stuff to the women, kind of stay out of it a bit, and you could say that's almost natural to some degree, but it's definitely I'd say it's a bonding, it's a thing that helps with bonding in some sense, in some way. And so if you do get involved, yeah, you're only going to benefit from it, and it will bring you guys closer together. It's brought us together, not in like, not necessarily in a huge, you know, a huge way, but it only helps. You know, it's just another thing that helps. Yeah.
Yeah, and like I think just jumping off that there, the respect there that we both know what's going on and we can both respect that, if that makes sense. So yeah, no, it's been really good. No worries.
What a lovely young couple. Now let's hear from our next couple, Melody and Phil, who have successfully used the method for 5 years to avoid and achieve pregnancy, and also while navigating the long periods of infertility during breastfeeding.
We've known each other for about 7 years, and we've been married for 5.5 years. And it was right after we got married that we learned about the Billings Method. About a month into marriage that we were trying to find another way of family planning to what we were doing.
I learnt the method through my wife. I had no idea that this method even existed before. So Mel is right into this type of stuff. So I learnt it through Mel.
My mum had mentioned things about this, not that she had always used it, but she knew that this was a good way for health and family planning and things like that. And so I was aware of it, but I'd never learnt how to do it until, like I said, 5 and a bit years ago. Yeah, so for me, I guess it's just getting used to it as a couple, and to become confident and reliant on it.
I think I kind of just followed Mel's lead.
Yeah.
And I mean, what she was talking about was, like, I guess, like, we both got a medical background, so it's easy to kind of pick up, I guess.
I think the biggest thing is right before we got married, I went on the contraception pill, and it was not fun. My body did not like it. I was having headaches all the time. I felt terrible. Huge weight gain like really quickly, and mood swings, and I could tell that it just wasn't right for us. And when I looked at other options, I really just wanted to avoid anything coming into my body unnaturally and changing hormones and cycles and things like that. So that was the huge driver for me. And I guess also because Phil was very supportive of how I felt about it. And so, yeah, I guess that's why we made the decision. And I like the idea of understanding and controlling my own body, rather than being controlled by pharmaceutical or something, that wasn't naturally part of us or me.
Yeah.
Happy wife, happy life. But I guess the reason why I said yes was because just seeing Mel have the take the pill in this, just watching like these mood swings and it just wasn't working for her. Like it just was not working. And like doing our research and with changing all these the hormones in the body, and that it's not a good thing. Yeah.
Since we learnt about it 5 and a bit years ago, and since then we've had 2 kids and another one on the way, and it's worked for us.
Yeah.
So it's worked for us in trying to conceive as well as in avoiding conception and things like that.
Okay.
Yeah. Easiest thing, I think, just that I guess you didn't need to have anything else involved. I didn't have to take a pill at a certain time. You didn't have to make sure you had this type of protection or things like that. I think that was probably the easiest once we learnt the method, that it was just we had the knowledge and we didn't have to worry about any other factors. That was probably the easiest thing for me, I think. Yeah.
I guess the hardest aspect is like once you learn how to once you learn the cycles and that, I guess the hardest part is trying to control yourselves. That's what I thought the hardest.
Especially as newlywed people.
Yeah.
We had been married a month by that point when we started learning about it.
Yeah.
So yeah, and obviously in the beginning when you're learning, there's more no-go zones, I guess, until you really understand it.
But once you learn that, it's
freedom, I guess.
It's easy.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I've had to be very open about how I feel and what's going on with my cycle and things like that. Not that we've had an issue with that, but it's just talking about it to that we are on the same page with it all and things like that. One thing I did find a little bit hard was after having kids and my body was different, like the hormones are different and breastfeeding and things like that. But that's where we were really lucky that Mandy, our mentor, was still there to help guide me and check my charts and how my cycle was going so that I could learn through that phase. I did find it a little bit confusing because I'd learned exactly how to identify my body's signs before, and then obviously when breastfeeding and pregnant, well, not pregnant, like you don't have to worry about it as much, but when I was breastfeeding and before my cycle came back after a baby, having to really focus on those principles of understanding the method.
Yeah.
So it kind of reinforced my learning of the method each time after having a baby.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You had to relearn what was your new normal.
Yeah.
During breastfeeding.
Yes.
And then
I would say try learning it as early as you can, because the sooner you learn, you got nothing to lose in the beginning. Like, I wish we could teach it I think we should be teaching it to our girls and to our, our daughters or our sisters and things like that before they even become sexually active, for them to learn their body, because it's not just about conception, but learning their health. So I would say learn the method, find a mentor to teach you, and then just give it a try. There's no side effects of learning it. There's no ongoing needing to get prescriptions from GPs or things like that. So I'd say just try it.
Great advice from Melody and Phil. If anyone has any questions, you can type it down in the Q&A section instead of the chat. We will move on to the next section. We have some more men of Billings who have helped develop the online charting system Fertility Pinpoint. I'd like to introduce you to Damien Sawyer and Damien Berger of Dad Digital, who were interviewed last week by Lynn Anderson, an accredited Billings teacher who has also helped develop Fertility Pinpoint with the Damiens.
so our next two guests are Damien Sawyer and Damien Berger.
Sawyer.
Gentlemen.
Berger.
These two young gentlemen were the inspiration behind the development of Fertility Pinpoint, which was really our first effort at developing an online charting system, and they have been instrumental in bringing our teaching into the 21st century and making it so much easier for teachers and users to collaborate. And in fact, what was the little that we had, something connect collaborate, was a little saying we had.
Credit card connect collaborate.
No. Anyway, so I've invited you gentlemen here tonight because we want to know just a little bit about, first of all, I suppose, how you came to Billings in the first place, because as I understand it, you were both users of Billings when this idea about having a charting system came to you. So how did you come to Billings in the first place?
After you, Damien.
Okay, so my wife was teaching natural family planning, and I was using it as well. And I helped to teach a little bit insofar as my role was to kind of get the PowerPoint projector up on the screen when, for marriage prep and stuff like that. So yeah, and I would listen in and learn a bit more every class I went to. So that's how I came across Billings.
And what kept you using Billings?
Okay, so I mean, for me, what I liked was, I suppose, it brings an extra deeper meaning when we conceived a child, in that we kind of knew what was going on. Like, we were very fortunate that when we, or with my wife at least, the signs are very, very clear. And like, we could know the night that each child was conceived. So, with the first few at least. That was yeah, so that kind of made it extra special for me. So that's my my experience with Billings. That was good. And before that, I mean, my wife couldn't. We couldn't conceive for a while. We didn't want to because she had some virus, and so for the first 2 years of our marriage, we we used Billings for not conceiving, and then when we wanted to conceive, it was like, yeah, we found it very, very accurate, and yeah, that's, I suppose, brought extra meaning in our relationship. So
Thanks, Damien. Damien Sawyer?
Yeah. Well, I wasn't a Billings user when I met you, so we were engaged to be married, and Beck's jobs was the flowers and organising the music for the wedding, and mine was organising Billings. So I looked in the phone book, and there was it just so happened I lived 3 minutes away from the Billings office. I thought that was very convenient. Yeah, I thought I was one close, but it's the only one. Yeah, so I just happened to live up the road. So we booked our meeting and went in, and I don't know who I think, was it you, Lynn? I can't remember. We met someone first time, and anyway, it was all explained to us, and I had it was all very interesting. And I'm a little bit analytical, and I think whoever it was I think I upset them a bit for all the questions I asked. But anyway, I left thinking, okay, we could probably write software to help track this. So that's how I got into the fertility pinpoint bit, and then we've just used Billings all our marriage, and so far so good. No complaints. Everyone's excuse me, it's ticking all the boxes for us.
Great. So how did that experience as users then translate into, okay, let's get a little bit more involved and take this a step further and offer to build a system to chart online?
For me, I was this was before we had children, and life just had thousands of hours of free time, just time coming out of our ears, and thought, hey, we can write. Just the idea came for an app, and I work as a computer programmer, and I thought that sounds like a cool project. Let's get into it as a project, and so we worked on it for a year or so, and I just got involved, and it's still running, so I'm still involved and quite enjoy it. It's and I guess being through Fertility Pinpoint, become part of the Billings family, I guess, and got to know people at the office and been involved, and I like it, so I love the depth of Billings. I look at the history of Billings with John and Lynn, and when I step back and look at it, I'm pro Billings versus the opposition, versus the alternatives available, from artificial contraception and the other natural family planning methods. Billings resounds with me. I guess it's like my footy team, yeah, well, yeah, I guess, so we're a Billings family.
Yeah. So would you like to share the story about when you two approached us at the office?
yeah, I'll go next if you like.
Yeah.
So I'm very similar to Damien. Had an idea for app. So both of us share the same first name, and I called up the office and had a meeting and explained this idea that I had of charting, and the program would help to interpret the signs. And the people there, Kerry and Lynn, said, no, that's not going to work. We want people to use their own minds and interpret the signs themselves. So I kind of went away a bit deflated, but like, oh, well, they weren't really keen. Then independently, Damien Sawyer called up, and
3 days later or something,
something like that.
Which is,
I think it was, I'm not sure if it was Lynn or Kerry that answered the phone and said, "Oh no, sorry, you already had a meeting with us, don't you remember?" And then when they worked out as a different person, then I said, "Oh, why don't you guys get together?" So I caught up with Damien in a cafe in
Paran?
Paran, yeah, Paran, yep. And yeah, through that, we decided to go ahead with it. So I'm not a computer programmer, so we made a good team. And yeah, it's been a joy working with Damien, and yeah, it's grown from there. And yeah, then we've become friends, and now we live around the corner. So
Yeah, and our families are close. We go to the same school, and it's actually been a big change. Doing Fertility Pinpoint with Damien's probably had as much of an impact on my life as doing Billings with my wife, I guess, in some ways. Right? It's
this working in this field, I think it has a way of getting to you.
Yes.
Because you know that what you're doing is having a positive impact on people.
Mm-hmm.
And so on that note, I want to thank you both very much, not only for your time today, but also for that impact you've helped us have on people, and the way that you've been incredibly generous with your time and your talents to help us, further the Billings method and make it something that is easily accessible to more and more people around the world. So thanks so much, guys. We really appreciate it.
Thank you, Lynn. It's lovely knowing you, and everyone.
Thank you. It's been great.
I love how the Damien's friendship strengthened with learning the Billings method with their wives, and yeah, the friendship strengthened from developing Fertility Pinpoint. We will now just reminder, with the use of Fertility Pinpoint, Billings Life also offer remote teaching for couples who are not able to meet face to face. Our teachers also provide online consultation through Zoom. We'll now move on to answering some questions raised during the webinar and the question and answers. Rachel, are you able to read out some of the questions we received?
Yeah, sure. It's been pretty quiet here tonight. We've had a comment. I'll just see where we are. Sorry,
Yes, lovely testimony.
Yeah, so I think people here said that a guy says that his wonderful wife and he have used NFP, including the Billings method, and it's led them from NFP to super NFP, and thinking, what is the most loving thing I can do for my wife today or tonight? We also have another question about achieving pregnancy, whether it's best to avoid intercourse during the fertile phase to allow sperm to mature, and instead use alternate evenings for intercourse during the basic infertile phase. So I think I'll pass that to Carla.
Thanks, Rachel. Yes, so the question was, is it best to avoid intercourse during the fertile phase to allow sperm to mature? So this goes on from what we were talking about before about using alternate evenings for intercourse during the basic infertile phase. One of the main reasons we would say to not have intercourse at the start of the fertile phase is because by waiting, you are giving yourself a chance to see when you notice the most fertile symptom. And we talk about that when we teach couples, particularly if you have been trying to achieve for a while. When you notice that first change from your BIP, and then you see this sort of slowly progressing, developing pattern, once you spot that really fertile, slippery sensation, that's the best chance of conceiving. So that would be a reason for why you would wait a few days to have intercourse during the fertile phase.
Sorry, thanks, Carla. Just had one other question come up. Not sure, this might be, we may not be able to answer it straight away, but I'll see. Is it convenient for the man to take a supplement that improves his sperm, such as maca or L-arginine? If I said that right.
Yeah, and that would just be a question for the man to take to his GP. That's what we would be saying. We're fertility teachers, not doctors, so we can obviously make recommendations about diet and fitness, general health. But yeah, for anything that you're wanting to take supplements for, or anything, it's best to speak to your GP because they will be able to help you get onto the correct plan of attack.
Thanks, Carla. I think that's all for now. Over
Yeah.
to you, Caroline.
No worries. Thank you so much, Carla. Thank you, Rachel. If anyone do think of any questions after this webinar, we'll leave our contact details on display at the end of the webinar. So just want to thank you so much for joining us this evening as part of Natural Fertility Awareness Week. I'd like to give a special thanks to all our couples and men who have provided us with their insight on how they've used natural family planning in their relationship. In summary, these couples have learned to understand their combined and fertility and share the responsibility in managing the family situation. Learning the Billings Ovulation Method has helped the couples better communicate and deepen their understanding and appreciation of each other and their fertility. To conclude, let us listen to an interview from Dr. John Billings, which summarizes what we've discussed tonight about men's attitude towards the method. We'll also leave you with some testimonies from our clients and our contact details on the screen if you'd like to get in touch. Alternatively, you can also type your web address, the web address billings.life on our web browser if you want to contact us. Thank you so much for your time.
Do you have any incidents from foreign country or any particular story of interest about?
I think the stories of the husbands are often very interesting because it's been put to us at times that we can't expect the husbands to go along with this kind of method, requiring this time of abstinence during the cycle. That proves everywhere to be quite untrue. It's a false prediction. The husbands like this method. For one reason, they're sharing in the responsibility of decision-making about postponing or achieving pregnancy. They know their wives are no longer in danger of ill effects, and they become interested in the physiology of the cycle. They're all reasons why they like the method, and we find the husbands are very cooperative. The women, of course, particularly those who've been afraid of pregnancy, may have been refusing their husbands for some time, and now, of course, the situation is transformed because the woman is in a position to know that there are all these days in the cycle when she cannot possibly become pregnant. And if she's sensible and loving and inviting to her husband at that time, he really begins to wonder just what's happening in the marriage, and he responds and realizes that this is something that's very useful to them. It elevates the marriage, really. It improves the conjugal relationship and very often improves the sexual relationship and even increases the frequency of intercourse in the marriage.
That's good.